Now, Damo, press conference time for the first time in 2011.
I think just before he does that, you should explain what this concept is, because there'll be a few first-time listeners.
Well, what it is
they continue to come over.
Well, they will. We've nearly got the whole audience. But Damo, of course, being the newsbreaker extraordinaire, tends to demand a segment of his own where he can just ask the three of us any questions he likes, and there is no... we've got no idea what he's going to ask. He never tells us.
And there's a vault of truth sort of component to it.
You've got to answer, and
we don't do it every week because that would be lost if we did. We do it every 3 or 4 weeks, but we thought for round 1 we would do it. And Danny...
No comment
is... Not allowed.
Oh, I was going to say sex.
Well, it's better than a lie, Garry, okay. So you can go to no comment if you don't want to lie. Danny, Wednesday this week...
Spud's just gone into the fetal position.
Wednesday this week, around about 11:30, I reckon.
I was at a function at the MCC with Nick Maxwell.
Oh, that's
11:30 in the morning, Wednesday this week, just gone. Where were you? Because I know where you were. I just want you to actually ease into where you were.
11:30 Wednesday.
Yeah, somewhere before the function.
You're in a hotel in the city, which was the
where was it?
It was the Grand Hyatt, because I actually saw you there. And I was going to come and say hello to you, but I then realised you were deep in discussion with someone who's pretty important in footy.
Oh, look at him. Look at him high.
And the reason I saw you there, Danny, was because there was a luncheon involving about 1,000 people at the same venue at 12 o'clock, and there were a lot of footy people there, so you were spotted by quite a few people. Do you want to tell us who you were having discussions with?
It's almost BT like
He's
that
turned
body
around
language.
and just staring out at the ground.
Because I didn't initially know who it was. As I said, I was going to come and say hello. I didn't know who it was. I checked out with someone. You were with
someone from Sydney.
You were the chairman of the new football club, GWS, a man by the name of Tony Shepherd. And you were deep in discussion with him. And I did a little bit of digging, not that day, but the day after.
Don't tell with another little payroll job.
And I'm of the conclusion now that it could only be one of 3 things. That you've been offered a role as an assistant coach, you've been offered a spot on the board, or you've been offered a spot in the football department to control both Kevin Sheedy and Mark Williams.
He was after someone.
Lord. This is unbelievable groundbreaking.
He was after someone who could go on the board. Not necessarily me, but who would be a good football board person.
Did he ask you to go on the board?
We asked. He may have. But I didn't. I politely...
in what role? In the football director's
because
role?
it would have been a huge conflict for a whole range of reasons. I'm a Saints man. Look after the coach's interests, so you can imagine being on the board at GWS. But he will... I threw in Gary Lyon's name. But no, so look, we had a discussion. But
I've heard they're very keen and they're going to have another crack at you, though.
What is this, Damo? Can I ask? Am I allowed to ask questions of you?
Yep.
Is this just like a honorary board position role, or is it a footy sort
honorary?
I didn't get that far. I know they want Danny involved in some form, and I would assume it would be a paid role at some stage.
No, it wouldn't be a paid role.
Okay.
No, it would be very similar to the Jason Dunstall role at Hawthorn.
So have you ruled it out 100%?
Ruled it out, yeah.
Crawley approach for Greater West Sydney board role.
But I tell you what, he's a man with big ideas, and I must admit I didn't know Tony Shepherd who he was, but he's an outstanding man, the president of GWS.
Pretty impressed with him?
Very impressed.
Next time you have a meeting, though, about a job, you should do it at a place where they're not having a big footy luncheon, I reckon. Danny?
Wow,
maybe you shouldn't be like Billy Brownless and go to all these functions.
Warrior, just clipping him.
What about this?
There's another appointment that's
There's a boundary ump. Sorry, Damon, interrupt the press
in a singlet.
There's a boundary umpire warming up
for 25 minutes.
Spud Regis.
On his wobble.
What is he doing?
He's doing like horse prancing.
Okay, Danny, you've knocked that.
No, you've knocked back.
Me. No, I haven't finished with you. You've knocked back that job. I believe, though, you've been approached to do another job, and I reckon you've accepted this one.
Ooh.
And that is to be an All-Australian selector.
Regis.
I'll tell you what, Pinhead.
He's on the button.
Might be one of a couple. Yeah.
One of a couple of jobs, or one of a couple of...
I think that's been announced. It's been... yeah.
No, well, someone told me this week that you've been approached and will most likely accept it.
No, well... Where are you getting your info from?
And Garry, just on the topic of All-Australian selection...
Hello, guess.
Are you also going to be joining the selection panel for the All-Australian, having spent the past 10 years criticising some people who've been on it?
No. No,
Have you been approached?
no comment.
I think
Garry.
you've been approached. So are you going to say yes to this or no to this, or are you considering it?
This has not been announced, Spud.
I didn't say anything. Don't look at me.
No, I won't be on the All-Australian selection panel, no. I won't be.
So have you told the AFL that?
Well, no, I'm not doing it, Damo, so I don't know why you even asked me.
Because they want you and Danny on it, is what I've been told.
Yeah, I'm not doing it. I can't do it. I'm not doing it, no.
Okay. All right. So, Danny, you're doing it.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Spud's not sure. Gary's gone no comment.
Gary's gone no, and Spud's not sure. Okay. JB,
yes.
Lots been made about North Melbourne.
Here we go.
And, look, the board situation played out in a very, very ugly way, in a way that you wouldn't have wanted. Emerging from it is the fact that North still needs to play matches elsewhere to get some money. Now, 2 matches in Tasmania from early as next year seems to be on the table. What's happened to Ballarat? Is that still on the table in terms of North Melbourne potentially playing home matches there?
Well, we still have community camps there. We have a great association, as Spud knows, with Ballarat. We have our reserves playing there. We have a wonderful relationship with that city. But when it comes to a hell of a lot of rubbish, Damo, has been written about the offer that came to build a stadium or to improve the stadium to AFL standards up there. Only going to take me a minute to explain this. What happened was, very late in the last state election, as a Hail Mary, because I think the Labor Party realised at that point they were in a bit of trouble, they contacted Andrew Demetriou and the AFL and said, if we throw $40 million at trying to get this stadium improved to the point where it's at AFL standard, will you allow a team to play 4 games a year there? And Andrew said, as I understand it, AFL said, if you're prepared to do that, then we're prepared to back it. And we think with North Melbourne already having a great association with Ballarat, they'd be the perfect fit. They then contacted us, the AFL, because the offer was put to the AFL, never to North Melbourne. They then contacted us, the AFL, and said, we think this is a good idea. I'm sure you will too, which we did. They said, OK, let's organise to get the announcement done. But the thing they said, Damo, at the time was, this cannot be whispered to anyone, because if it's leaked in any way, shape or form, this deal is off the table. Because obviously, one of the main reasons it was put forward is because Labor were trying to win the election, and they thought, quite rightly, that the seats in Ballarat were very marginal. So it was put to us categorically that if it was whispered to anyone, that deal would be taken off the table. So some of our directors weren't even aware of the fact that the offer had been put to us when we went to Ballarat to do what we did with John Brumby. So this rubbish about us going to the Liberal Party and saying, by the way, here's the offer, will you match it, is nonsense, is an absolute nonsense. Firstly, because the offer wasn't put to us, it was put to the AFL. And if that was the appropriate way to behave, then why didn't the AFL go to the Liberal Party and say, by the way, can you match this? They didn't, we didn't, because the Labor Party made it very clear that if that had been done, and if they'd won the election, that deal was off the table. Then, Damo, the headline would have read, $40 million deal falls over because James Brayshaw can't keep his mouth shut. So it is an absolute nonsense to level at North Melbourne.
Who's been levelling that?
A few journalists have. It is a nonsense.
Your favourite journalist.
It is a nonsense, Damo, to say that we scuppered that deal because we didn't go across to Ted Baillieu and his mob and say, by the way, because if we'd done that and it had got out, the whole deal was gone. And therefore we were sworn to secrecy. That's why it didn't happen.
Oh, that's the background to it. So playing get matches in Ballarat, that's just
all right, so moving forward, I'm on the record of saying I think it's a good idea, and a good idea is a good idea no matter who's in government. And I think an hour out of Melbourne to have a boutique stadium where you can take games that aren't going to fill this place or the MCG, fantastic. And if it happens, North Melbourne will support it, as I think all AFL clubs should. But someone, Damo's got to put $40 million up, and the AFL, I don't think, are going to do that. So it's going to take the standing state or federal government to do it. How likely that is, I don't know.
So 2 games for North in Hobart next year?
I hope so. I absolutely hope so.
Only 2?
Because the growth agenda is one that we're very public with. We've got to find more people to support us, to buy merchandise, to turn up at games, to watch us on telly, to become members. We must grow, as must Melbourne, as must all the clubs that are in that bottom half in size. So we unashamedly know we've got to grow. We think Hobart offers us a great opportunity to do that, and we hope it comes sooner rather than later.
Gary, Tom Scully being approached by GWS.
Yep.
Please tell us what you know about that, because nothing happens at Melbourne, and particularly to its potentially best player without you knowing.
Hand on heart, Damo. I'll tell you what I know. And I can only tell you what Tom Scully himself has said, and that is that he has not had any approach, nor his family, nor his manager. Melbourne remain confident that he will stay, but apart from that, I don't. Unlike some others, I don't pretend to know what's going on. That is the only information I can share. And if he stays, fantastic. If he goes, he will be going for money.
And that doesn't make it wrong, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, but that's the reason.
If it does get to that stage where it's in front of him, will you actively play a role in attempting to keep him, like Jim Steins would like you to do?
I will continue to do whatever Jim tells me to do. Jim Steins asks me or tells me to do, and yes, of course, because I know how important he is to the footy club and to my kids who are Melbourne supporters and the future supporters of the club. So, yep, I'll do. Yep, if he wants me to, I will.
Spud, your old club, St Kilda.
Oh, get a life, don't I?
No, this
Seriously.
is actually. I want your opinion here.
You've got too much time on your hands.
I just want your opinion here.
Cowering into the corner. This is a Goliath of a man.
He's been beaten around the head with a couple early.
The documentary that aired on the Footy Show last Thursday, very open, very captivating viewing. There's a couple of questions that came out of it. Why did they do it? Because I don't think that was quite answered. Did they do it, do you feel, that to make themselves feel good about themselves as much as trying to convince the public that they weren't as they had been perceived to have been over the summer? And I suppose just secondary to that, the bubble that Ross Lyon and the club has really played up over the journey, has it been too suffocating for some people?
No, I don't think so. I think that, to answer your first question, I think there was a bit of both. I think the fact that to let the punter know what happens behind the scenes when there's a few... You know, when your brand's been tarnished somewhat.
Yep.
And it's probably only 5% of what goes on at a footy club. You know, I think we were all amazed of even the on-field stuff with Ross but how they handled Zach Dawson, putting him out there. I thought it was pretty open, frank and honest, to be brutally honest. And there's no doubt there would have been a part of the commercial side of it to show the football world that there is
another
the club's
side
on track. Yeah.
Just also, that's the end of the very nice press conference.
Nice
nice opening from the Warrior. He'd want to come or something. He's had 6 months.